husband, father, grandfather, brother, uncle, and friend. He was born in Guildford, County Down, on the 25th of February 1951, to Francis and Albert. He was the eldest of their 4 children. He grew up in the village on the banks of the River Van. His family were very musical. In fact, they were a family show band. Lawrence, his mum, dad, sisters Olga and Audrey, and brother Graham were all part of it. Music was a continual love of Lawrence's life. He finished school and attended Queen's University. He didn't graduate, however. He had a change of plan and set off to see the world. He first went to England, where he worked on the building sites. Then he went to France, then Spain, and then eventually North Africa. Wondering what to do and how to continue his travels, he went to the Army Recruitment Office. There he was told, as he could play the bagpipes, he could join the Irish Guards and be in Hong Kong within a month. That was the start of his military career. In the early 1970s, Larry met and married Catherine and had children, Fiona and Mark, who are here today. Although he did not live with the children, they would travel to various parts of the world to visit Larry, often by themselves. Debbie and Lawrence were married in 1987. Their family blended together to include Fiona, Mark and Debbie's son Christopher. They were married for 34 years and were very well met. They were a great team, both spontaneous. They shared a passion for travel and adventure. In fact, they were referred to as Team Templeton. Coincidentally, they lived in Guildford in Surrey, so he went from one Guildford to another. They had a big extended family, including 14 nieces and nephews, affectionately known as the Brats, and 4 grandchildren. They moved to Killarney 6 years ago. At the time, they were looking for someone to retire to, and they had never actually heard of Killarney. But true to their adventurous spirits, they came over with some friends who wanted to retire there, fell in love with the scenery, and decided this was the place for them. They bought a house, moved in, and very quickly made friends and became part of the community. Debbie has written a eulogy that she has asked him to read. Larry. My husband Larry was one in a million. I cannot begin to describe how much he enriched my life. He was so full of confidence, fun, and spontaneity when I first met him, that over the years these characteristics became mine too. He taught me to believe in myself, to respect myself, and to love life. We had many shared interests, but our main one was travel. We loved going to new places, meeting the local people, and trying to understand their cultures. We had many, many holidays in our 36 years, not all good, but all interesting. He was always an early riser. He would be up most mornings around 5 or 6 a.m, and before we retired, he would be on his laptop working. He was a hard worker and took his responsibilities to his job seriously. January this year, he told me that he had trouble swallowing, and in April, he was eventually diagnosed with a malignant tumour in his throat. He went through a huge amount of invasive and painful treatment to try and get rid of the cancer. He was an amazing patient. He never complained, and he just accepted that this was his lot. It was my privilege to look after him. There was a fair amount of work dealing with his tracheotomy and stomach peg, and numerous journeys to court for treatment. However, as his great friend Pat Leaney said yesterday, he would have gone to Timbuktu if it would save his life. Unfortunately, it was not to be, and he died last Sunday. He was uncomplaining to the very end. I am very grateful for the 36 years we had together, and memories will keep me going during this very difficult time ahead. Larry, you'll always be the love of my life, and I do hope you're at peace now. To say I will miss you is a massive understatement. Our memories and some of your sayings will live on in me, your children, and grandchildren. I love you.
She looks so sweet from her to her feet to the sheen of her nut brown hair. Such a coaxing,
heavy heart that I stand here today, having to say goodbye to my closest and dearest friend. A friend for in excess of 40 years. Times we had together, the times we shared, great days, great memories. A love of rugby maybe, and the times we shared holidays together. I could tell you lots of funny stories, but I think today is probably not the day to be. So that's for another day and another time. And to you, Debs, I know you in excess of 40 years as well. My heart's breaking for you today too. I'll be always there for you. And finally, then, I would like to say, I will always remember you. How could I ever forget you? May perpetual light shine upon you. Stay well, my friend.
My lonely prison wall, I heard a young girl calling. Michael, they have taken you away, for you stole rebellion's corn, so the young might see the morn. Now a prison ship lies waiting in the bay. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had trees and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young man calling. Nothing matters, Mary, when you're free. Against the famine and the crown, I rebelled, they cut me down. Now you must raise our child in the tea. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the feet of Athenry. By a lonely harbor wall, she watched the last star falling. As the prison ship sailed out against the sky, for she'd wait and hope and pray for love in Botany Bay. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry.
today. Teresa Looney is going to read his words for us.
Okay, I'm just reading this on behalf of the family in Australia that couldn't be here today, especially for you, David. Firstly, myself, my wife Jacqueline, and our sons Joseph and Harry would like to thank everyone who has been there for my mum and Larry for the past year, and especially there for my mum over these last few heartbreaking days. We thank you all very much. She definitely has great neighbours and loving family and friends around her at this time. We cannot be there at this time, and we are all very grateful. Lawrence Templeton, Larry Grumpy. What can I say about Larry? Well, actually, I can quite say a lot about Larry, but where do I start? Well, here goes. Larry was a big-hearted, colourful character. He had a lot of passions, hobbies, interests and loves. He was stubborn, kind, competitive, loyal, honest, intelligent, passionate, sociable, hard-working, genuine and very generous. He always filled up my beer fridge when he was here in Australia. We have many memories and stories about Larry, such as whenever we went out as a family. Larry would quite often do a recce, first to gauge how the situation or our destination. He would walk off quickly, almost at a marching speed, leaving all of us behind, prompting my mum to say, "Where has Larry gone now?" Which reminds me of the time that Larry and I went camping in the Brecon Beacons in Wales. After camping the night next to a stream where I managed to lose Larry's mess tin whilst washing it, we set out on a hike. After quite a few hours, my 14-year-old legs were trying to keep up with Larry's long-legged strides. He was setting a blistering pace, and I was just keeping up with Larry and asked him if this was the usual kind of pace they set in the army. Larry replied, "Let's keep going, because the pub down the road shuts at 3 p.m. Needless to say, we made it in time for Larry to have a few beers. That was Larry. Another time in Thailand, we all will remember when he fell off the ferry boat and did a drunken Irish pole dance around the exit hole in front of a packed boat. There was a collective gasp as he almost squashed the tramp and very nearly got caught between the boat and the concrete mooring. My mum shouted out, "Larry!" We were all very concerned. He had hurt himself, but he just stood up, brushed himself off and said, yes, 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 I'm fine. But I'm sure he wasn't. Then he marched off again. That was Larry. Our son Joseph recently told the story about the time Larry took him scuba diving in Bali. Joe was a semi-nervous 12-year-old boy on his first ever dive, and he said to Larry, "I hope there won't be any jellyfish in the ocean." Larry responded, "I have never come across any jellyfish in all of my 20 years diving, and I have never come across any in this region. I've been diving here for years." Then they proceeded to dive into the biggest swarm of jellyfish ever imagined. Joseph said there was jellyfish as far as the eye could see, and everyone got stung. Larry had a lot of interests and hobbies, such as scuba diving, cycling, travel, sport, food and drink, music, socialising, we know all about that, cooking, gardening and playing musical instruments. Which reminds me of a time he was playing the bagpipes in the communal gardens out on the back of our home our home in Wood Street. The sound was so loud, weird and strange that people from far and wide came around saying, "What's that awful noise?" My reply was, oh, it's just Larry. He played a multitude of traditional music instruments such as the tin whistle, the Irish drum, or bodhrán, the bagpipes, and sometimes his dad's accordion. He often carried his tin whistle with him. He even managed to find a couple of pubs in Western Australia that had Irish music playing, and he happened to have his tin whistle with him, and of course he ended up on the stage playing with the band. That was Larry. He had great spirit and drive. He didn't care too much for other people's opinions of him, or even how he dressed. We recall numerous beaches we visited whilst on holidays, and also here in Australia, where he would usually wear a brightly coloured bandana, tight shining swimming shorts, Jesus sandals, and a bum bag. You can picture it, can't you? A white, tall, skinny-legged, bandana-wearing, sandal-wearing tourist. That's not even mentioned the salmon-pink trousers or his sarong. That was Larry. Larry was always busy, whether it was gardening, shopping or cycling, DIY, home projects, doing odd jobs, socialising with friends, and of course cooking. He was an excellent cook, and in fact one of our fondest memories of him cooking in the kitchen with a teat all over his shoulder, a beer in his glass, Irish music playing in the background, and some type of sports on TV. He loved most sport, especially rugby, and his team London Irish, who he did take me to watch once in Reading. And of course the Irish national team, which made it easy to buy birthday and Christmas presents for him. He had a wonderful rich life and was definitely a large character. Of course he had some faults as well, as we all do. He could be stubborn, and he had some strong opinions about which led to heated debates which made some of us uncomfortable, but I think he actually enjoyed it to a degree. That was Larry. He got dates, names, times and places wrong, which sometimes would have my mum sternly correct him. Normally his reply would be, right, okay darling. He was a worldly man who led an exciting life. He travelled extensively around the world with both the army and with his family. But still, he got lost quite often, like the time in Oz when Jack and her sister Jane were at the train station. He said, I will go and pick them up. I said, you know how to get there. He said, yeah, and off he went. Anyway, by an hour later they had still not been picked up, so I went to get them. Larry turned up back at the house a half an hour later. He had gone to some freight terminal industrial train station miles and miles away, and had literally driven past the local station, which was just 5 minutes up the road. That was Larry. Larry loved to pop out to the shops, especially if we were in a different country, where he would invariably get lost or end up in a bar or both. We had many adventures as a family. Our youngest son Harry was just talking about the Irish fry-up when Grumpy cooked up for breakfast most mornings, referred to as the Grumpy special. Also after dinner he would say, right, Harry, what topic do we want to discuss tonight? Which normally led to some fiery conversations between us all. But he was never boring. Both my boys also recall how Larry used to play around in the ocean with them, pretending to be the Greek white shark, throwing them around, splashing, laughing and having fun. The boys also both recall when Larry took us to watch a Gaelic football game in the bitter cold in Killarney. They remembered the hot dogs and coke mainly after the game, as we went on to a pub crawl around the town with Larry's neighbour and friend Kathleen. He went to some lively pubs and met some interesting characters, and the men definitely had a good time, but not so sure that what the boys did. That was Larry. On one of our 3 trips to Bangkok, we remember one humid, wet night when Larry told us about a really good Irish bar. When Larry was navigating the way, he led us straight through this middle of Pathan and the red light district, where we were surrounded by hundreds of lady boys trying to touch the boys' heads, accosting us and trying to entice us into their bars. All the while, Larry would be seen in the distance, striding ahead towards the pub, unaware of the chaos behind him. There were loads more stories we could retell, such as Brian's villa, stringing all of our clothes thrown, Belfast wedding fights, naked sunbathing at the numerous locations and venues, crashing the barbecue boat, crashing motorbikes in Greece, ordering his pet pad, the curries that were invariably too hot, but he stubbornly munched through them, red-faced with sweaty brow, boat fishing for tuna in Thailand, Long Island ice palm shows, the tourist police and Bangkok nightlife, and so on and so on. We will not forget him. Larry was an old school type of bloke with excellent manners, respect for others, and very high morals. He was a get on with it and don't complain type. He also respected tradition and traditional views and ideas. He was a proud Irishman and loved his country. I always respected him for that. He has been cruelly and tragically taken from us too early, but has left a massive mark on this world. Let's thank him for his life. Let's celebrate his life. He has lived and he has loved. I want to thank him for looking after my mum and making my mum very happy for the last 35 years. He truly loved her, and their love for one another was always evident and strong. My mum has lost her soulmate, her confidant, her true love, her friend. Stay strong, Mum, we all love you. That's it. Sorry, excuse me. Just one left paragraph. Let's all remember Larry for what he was. An independent man, a character, a gregarious bloke, a friend, a father, a grandfather, a socialite, a brother, a neighbour, a sports fan, a traveller, a worker, a lover. He was so many things and much, much more. He leaves behind many great friends, great neighbours, extensive family all over the world, work colleagues, army mates, and of course his lovely wife Debbie. Yes, Larry was a larger-than-life character who lived his life the way he wanted. He did the things he wanted to do. He had fun and enjoyed himself. So let's remember him fondly and let's celebrate his life, not be sad. He would want a party. He would want everyone to be happy, not miserable. Unfortunately, we cannot be there today, but we send all our love from Australia. We will all miss him so, so much. Thanks for all the good times, Larry. No more pain, just peace now. You are gone, but never forgotten. With much love from Chris, Jack, Joseph, and Harry.
Larry was a man with many passions and hobbies. He was a natural mentor. This is apparent during his army days and later in life. When he moved to Ireland, he joined the Killarney Cycling Club and mentored the young cyclists for the Ring of Kerry and the Ring of Beara charity cycles. As well as cycling and music, he was also a huge rugby fan, a gardener, and a great cook, as we have heard. The gifts that we now have brought up represent these loves. Mark has brought Lawrence's cycling helmet, hat, a tin whistle to represent the many nights that were enjoyed playing traditional music. Audrey has brought potatoes, which are only ever called spuds. These represent Lawrence's love of cooking. He was a great host, welcoming everyone into his home. Dinner, however, was never on time. But it didn't matter, because it was the enjoyment of the process that was important. Although he grew vegetables and was very proud of his spuds, peas and beans, he also loved flowers, roses in particular, which of course also represent Lawrence and Debbie's love for one another. Lawrence was always fit, active and full of life. During his military career, he took part in the changing of the guard, in trooping the colour, and he piped for Her Majesty the Queen Mother. He even held a place in the Guinness Book of Records for playing bagpipes at the highest altitude. However, in April of this year, he was diagnosed with cancer of the throat. He had chemotherapy and radiotherapy, through which he never complained, even when he lost his sense of taste, so he could no longer enjoy food and drink. He developed pneumonia, which he fought, and eventually was able to go home. 2 weeks ago, it became clear he was very unwell, and he had developed a chest infection. He was taken by ambulance to the hospital, but soon moved from there to the palliative care unit. His family stayed with him all the time. They talked to him, told stories, and held his hands. Sadly, last Sunday, surrounded by his family, he died. Of course, Lawrence will be hugely missed. His thoughts on death was that it was some kind of deity, but he was not sure what it was. He was sure, however, he wasn't going anywhere, that his presence would stay here with those he loved. He will be remembered in many ways for his sayings. Once on a family holiday in Thailand, dinner in a very small restaurant was taking a long time. Lawrence said, not to worry, it's a one-walk operation, an expression which is now regularly used. He will be remembered for cutting the grass in meticulously straight lines with the help of his ride-on mower named Elvis, and for declaring that dinner was not a dinner without a spud. He will be missed for his warmth, his hospitality, his hugs, his tongue-in-cheek tellings off, his expressive eyes and eyebrows that would say 1,000 words in one raise. 70 years is far too short a time in this world. Those years were surrounded by love. Even in the palliative care unit, he never complained. He was brave, stoic, and a soldier to the end. Before we finish here today, Debbie and her family have asked me to tell you about their arrangements. If you would like to travel to the crematorium in Cork from here, you're most welcome. Then, at 6 o'clock this evening, everyone is invited to the family home in Killarney. We now have a poem read by Teresa Burke.
A rose once grew where all could see, sheltered beside a garden wall, and as the days passed swiftly by, it spread its branches straight and tall. One day a beam of light shone through a crevice that had opened wide. The rose bent gently towards its warmth, then passed beyond to the other side. Now you deeply feel its loss. Be comforted. The rose blooms there, its beauty even greater now, nurtured by nature's own loving care.
Finally, to conclude today, Tony Feeney, in fitting tribute to a great man, will sing The Parting Glass.
You can't have him. Just before I sing that, I'd just like to explain a little bit. The reason I'm just taking a little bit of port is because I have a little tickle in my throat. Myself and Larry spent years together singing in holes in the ground in some beautiful plush places. And one of the songs that both he loved and I loved was The Parting Glass. The last time I sang this, I sang it at my brother's funeral. And I said at that time, I just want to sing one more song with my brother in the room. And there is my brother, Lawrence Templeton. If I make a mistake, I apologise. All the money that e'er I had, I spent it in good company, and all I've done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. Sorry, I knew I was going to mess it up. Sorry. I'll start again. Of all the money that e'er I had, I've spent it in good company, and all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And all I done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass, good night and joy be with you all. Of all the comrades that e'er I had, they would wish me one more day to stay, and all the sweethearts that e'er I had would wish me one more day or two as well. But since it falls unto my lot that I should rise and that you should not, I will gently rise and I'll softly call, good night and joy be with you all. A man may drink and not be drunk, a man may fight and not be slain, a man can court a pretty girl and perhaps be welcome back again. But time to rise and time to fall, come fill to me a parting glass. Good night, my love, good night, my friends, good night and joy be with you all.